If you've been in Nashville for any more than a week, you probably know the name Tyson Leslie. He's a guy that has his finger just in about everything. He plays guitar, plays keyboards, plays bass, drums, sings. Ask anybody in town who's one of the hardest working, most connected people, odds are Tyson Leslie's name is going to come up. In my short time in Nashville, I noticed Tyson right away. I noticed him online just really advocating for other people, trying to help other people out. Seemed like he was a good community member. He and I have crossed paths a few times. And like I said in my previous video, the idea of doing interviews was brought up when Tyson and I were talking on that one day when my whole world seemed to be falling down. So I had a chance to pin down Tyson. And trust me, he's a hard guy to nail down. And Tyson and I spoke for over 2 hours. And it was just a really good conversation. And there were so many pearls of wisdom in there. And I originally had planned on just using a few clips of Tyson for one video about this topic and then be done with it. But Tyson dropped so much valuable wisdom that I felt it was necessary to share it with the rest of the world. And if you're a musician in Nashville, if you're a musician looking to advance your career, looking to network, I highly recommend you watch this interview with the one, the only Tyson Leslie.
I don't know, about 3 or 4 years ago, I started putting together a master list of all the players that I could find on Broadway, that and name, phone number, email, what instrument that they play, what they specialize in. Are they, is country their biggest things, metal their thing, and blues, jazz, whatever it is that they specialize. Do they play an instrument too, or a second instrument, additional instruments? And I don't know how many people are in it. It was a lot, probably a good 200-300 people in it right now at this point. And I've got to go through it again and update it and figure out, okay, who's moved away?
Yeah.
Who's new?
Because it's always turning over.
Always turning over.
And I think when you have been new and then you've been here for a while, people can go like one of two ways. Because I've been on gigs where I've been frustrated with people, and I'm like, you know what, me being an asshole is not going to make this gig any easier. And I also know what it was like when I was there.
Right.
And, everybody has to learn somehow. And you know what? If that impacts your shift, it's unfortunate, but it's one shift. And, like the greatest thing about Nashville, I've always told people, is the greatest resource is the other people and forming relationships with other people. And I've always went out of my way because I know how scared I was when I first came here.
Which was when?
2022.
22, okay.
That I started playing here in 2022 and I was scared shitless, and I remember those feelings. And I always talk to like the new people, or if somebody has a bad gig, I talk to them the way I would want to be talked to after I had one of those gigs. And not just talk to them, but say, hey, like, what do you need? Like, can I help you out? Because I think the thing about Nashville is that it can be a really good community, and it's what you make of it. It's not like what's Nashville going to give to me. It's like, what can I give to the community? How can I participate? And I think there's some givers. There's people who want to give, and then there's people who, like, for one reason or another, they want to take, or they want to feel like they have some sense of entitlement, or maybe they're just tired of doing the Broadway thing. I don't know. We've all had bad days, and I try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. But then have you noticed that there's some people that just kind of, and it's a very loud, in my opinion, a very loud minority that just are always on, always talking, always saying something.
Yes.
And it can give like the whole scene like kind of this feel that it really isn't. Like, you go down and walk, my favorite thing about Nashville is walking up and down Broadway to a gig, saying hi to my friends, and just saying hi and smiling. Be like, oh, there's a guy I know and I played with him before. And how, like, oh, somebody needs a pair of sticks. Like, I can run that over to them. There's a couple times Logan was like, oh man, I forgot my in-ears. I'm like, I got you, man. And I was happy to walk him down to him. And he was like, I'll buy you a new pair. I'm like, you don't need to do that, dude. Just bring it back. But then there's people, like, for lack of better terms, do you think that there's like kind of like almost a bully culture?
Yes, especially right now.
Okay.
Now more than ever, maybe. Or not ever, but since I've been here. So in 10 years, it's definitely changed. It's always going to be a little cliquey, no matter where you live. Mm-hmm. It's just different because we're all in the same area all the time.
Yeah.
And so it gets splintered off into, to me, there's like the Tootsie Circuit people that really run together in a weird sort of way. whereas the other circuits don't really run with each other or among themselves. And then there's people like some of the folks that I work with who aren't involved in any way, shape, or form with anybody outside of our gig. They don't even know all these people that we're discussing. They wouldn't even, if I started throwing out names, they wouldn't even know what I'm talking about because they don't care.
Yeah.
They just come down to do that one gig that they do every week or 3 gigs or whatever residency they have and just kind of keep to themselves. And that's both bands that I play with are a little more like that. They don't insert themselves into all the extracurricular drama that happens among some of the mean people or whatever. They wouldn't even know who they are. And I loved that about. I'm walking down Broadway one day. I'm looking in windows. I'm like, I don't know who the hell any of these people are anymore. What's going on? And I'm seeing it in the Facebook groups that, I'm seeing all these new names, that have appeared that I didn't know before, like people like yourself and Vicky Nova and tons of people that I was like, where do these people come from and what do they do and what's, so one of the things I was thinking about doing after I'm done here is going down there and trying to seek out some of these new people and see what they do and see what they sound like and what their deal is, because I used to do that a lot. Yeah. When I was seeking work. Now that I don't really have to seek it out, now it's just out of curiosity to see, okay, this person's better than I thought, or this person's not as good as I expected, or whatever. Yeah. And just kind of vet who's who and what they do and what their wheelhouse is and everything like that. Because about 3 or 4 years ago, I started putting together a master list of all the players that I could find on Broadway, that and name, phone number, email, what instrument. I finally meet him. I'm like, holy crap, he was super nice to me. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, I can go on record here because nobody cares and it's nobody. Like the singer for Buck Cherry. I heard from so many people what an outrageous, awful person he was to be around, and he was difficult, and he was loudmouth and rude and whatever. And I did a festival with Buck Cherry when I was playing with Corey Taylor back in 2008. We'd just gotten finished, and I was kind of headed back to my trailer, and I see Josh Todd, and I'm not thinking about, I better not talk to him, Yeah. And he's like, hey, and talking to me, and I'm like, what's up, man? And he's like, dude, you're fucking great. Like, I really enjoyed you. You're awesome. Your performance was great. Your energy's great on stage. I can't wait to see you tomorrow, because we were playing a different festival the next day. And I was like, oh, well, thanks. And then we talked for a little while just about what they were doing and what I was doing. And I couldn't have been a nicer guy. And I'm like, well, if I'd have listened to this person, that person, that person, that conversation wouldn't even happen.
And so I guess the one thing I'm really interested before I even give my side, I've heard a couple people mention it and they've like laughed about gossip, but I'm like, I just don't pay attention to that because everyone seems to have a horse in the race. And I'm like, I'm not really into that right now. What is, from somebody who I trust and respect as being level-headed and has been around, what is your understanding of the situation, or what do you see? Good, bad, whatever. I want to hear your take on it if you're comfortable.
I'm not as angry, obviously, as everybody else is. I wasn't really even offended by it, except for the fact that I try to put myself in a scenario where, like, I spent hours and hours writing all these charts, contributing them to a folder for other people. I wrote them for me initially, but I may as well let other people use them if they can use them and take advantage of it. And then all of a sudden, if I try to think about, if I'm now I'm surfing a website and I come across this thing and it chart. Let me click on that. Shit, that's $150 for, or whatever the price was, for something that I did a long time ago and I totally had forgotten about it. And now it's up there and it's for sale. That's kind of messed up. And that is definitely where everybody's coming from on that. What do I do? Do I call this person out? I try to put myself in what would I do in this situation if that were me from the other end. And I do believe anything like that should be called out because you have to learn from it. That's the only way you do learn. Is there's so many scenarios that are happening, and some are still happening, that people aren't getting called out for. And some of those people were in all the comments about what happened with you. And I'm looking at that going, that's pretty hypocritical coming from you. who just did this, this, and this a few weeks ago. Who are you to jump on here and try to act like you're better than the next person when you're not? However, I also think that you owned up to what you attempted to own up to what you did, and it was not, as you said, fell on deaf ears. It was very not well received, and I even called you that day when I myself was going through plenty of my own personal stuff, and we helped each other out that day. But because I know what that feels like to be on the other end of that and being like, oh my God, but I was in a scenario when I was brand new to town. I was trying to figure out how to create my shows that I do here in town called Rare Hair. And there was another show organizer that I was working with at the time, and we had it didn't come to blows or anything like that, but boy, it was definitely uncomfortable. And I felt like I pissed off the one guy who took my hand and led me to the water. I bit the hand that fed me. This is somebody who I still to this day greatly admire. He's been here a lot longer than I have. And that was the biggest point of argument. It was like, you're gonna come into this town brand new and you're gonna take all these contacts that I've been building in this town for 15 years and you're just gonna steal them all and create your own show? Like, who the hell are you to do that? And that was humbling, man, and it was terrifying. Now my reputation's on the line, not only with this guy who means the world to me because he is the first guy to give me a shot and gave me my first gig in town. Played it for a month, and that last week of mine that I was there, he and I got into it pretty bad about the same thing. And I remember there was a song of the artist I was working with, like I was stumbling to remember how it started. And I started the song. It was like Slash forgetting how to start Sweet Child of Mine. And so I'm sitting there playing this chord, starts an F. I know that. That's all I can remember. I can't remember the melody. And I'm so flustered because we just had this argument.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to work on the song during sound check. After sound check, I was just going to sit there and work on the song. But instead, I'm arguing with this guy for 3 hours and didn't get the chance to work on the song. I completely crashed the song. Completely. Just dumped on the song. I'm looking at the guitar player who's way over there. And I'm just like, and he's like, are you going to start the song? I'm like, I don't, just play something. I got nothing. I don't remember. I don't know. And I can't communicate that to anybody. And finally, he starts playing something. Okay, I know. But at that point, I was like a bar or two off. So it just completely train wrecked.
Yeah.
On a major artist gig. I was fired that Sunday.
Yeah.
And I went, and I remember I had a rehearsal for the jam the next week. And I was terrified to go into this rehearsal and face all these peers of mine who play in arenas and stadiums for a living, who are going to go, hey, I heard you got the gig, how's the gig? I already lost the gig. And the first person I ran into was Matt Billingsley from Taylor Swift's band. And that's exactly what he said. Dude, congrats on the gig. I heard you got, the gig. Yeah, I don't have that gig anymore. And I was super bummed. And he goes, okay, I want you to look around the room and I want you to remember this, that everybody in this room, including me, has been fired from a gig. Everybody. Mm-hmm. I got fired from Lady Antebellum and now I play for the biggest artist in the world. Not a bad trade. And I was like, okay, that's a good point. And the next guy I ran into, same thing. He basically gave me the same talk without, knowing that I just had that talk. So I was like, okay, all right, maybe as long as these people are still cool with me, then maybe I haven't shot myself in the foot too bad. And then for a year I came back down on Broadway and played at the piano bar there. Before I started just playing in bands. I did that for another year, and then I got a call from the artist I play with now, and I've been with them ever since 2017. I remember being just extremely humbled by it, realizing, okay, maybe I need to reevaluate how to learn songs or learn a whole bunch of material in a short amount of time. I had 38 songs to learn in 2 weeks. And so when I got the Vixen gig, which is who I play with now, I learned both albums all the way through, every song. And then I learned some songs from the third album that they don't play at all,
Yeah.
just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case. And I learned every single thing that I could, and all my charts were right, everything was right, and I went in and nailed the audition, and I've been there ever since.
Every musician goes through something personally and musically where you are just absolutely tested. You feel like you're hitting bottom, the world is going to bottom out. And you can choose to think, okay, they're right, I can't do this, or you can be mad at everybody and you can walk around with a chip on your shoulder. You can like step back and say, all right, what let me just sit and think and what's going on. You know, who am I? And that takes a lot of maturity. And I think you can't get that unless you've been in the, for lack of better terms, in the shit before.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like on Broadway. It's like you can't fully know unless you've done it, and you can't learn unless you've been there, and people are just calling off tunes like that, and you're like, I don't know the song, and they just go into it anyways.
Right.
Yeah, what you were saying about like that perspective, I'm like, yeah, I think that's the same perspective I had about like somebody be like, wait, I did all this work, and now this is part of this whole package. Like as soon as I tried to have any bit of a conversation or own any accountability on it, it seemed like it was shot down.
Yes.
And I read the comments and I'm like, man, some of these people are like really just over the line. But then I also really wanted to be real with myself. I'm be like, well, someone can react over the line, but was I wrong? You know, and I want to like really think about that and what do I value? It's been interesting because I haven't talked with too many people about it because
Sure.
I want to avoid like, you know, I didn't want to put any fan the flames.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't want the drama. But it also like caused me to like really reassess. Like,
So do you feel like you were wrong?
I felt like, yeah, there were some things that I did not approach well.
Yeah.
That is something that I would really like to have a discussion about. And it's not to save face.
Right.
Because, you know, honestly, like, and I don't want to like sound arrogant, but like, there's music outside of Broadway. I don't need to be in that world.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with it. I enjoy the people here in Nashville, and I enjoy like the musicians I work with. Anytime I make a video or a post, I think of talking to a younger version of myself and trying to help out a younger version of myself. And I wish other people would help me coming up. And I'm like, I want to try and help people.
Yeah.
The part of me feels like I was right about like, I was advertising it as like, I didn't do all this work. I'm saving you the time and effort. But I could have done it in a better way. And I really wanted to have a conversation. And I was like, okay, well, I learned something from this. How can I put it back into the community? How can I put it back into helping other people? Because that's really what I want to do. And then I guess the dialogue was such in a way that nobody was interested in correcting any wrongs or listening. They just wanted to yell.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, cool. And so I really haven't thought too much about it since then. There was one person he mentioned, I actually emailed him or I messaged him. I said, hey, like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it to be this way. I can see why you're angry. Let me know what I can do to make it better.
Yeah.
No response.
Right.
That's their prerogative.
Right.
And so I was kind of like, well, what do I do? That's where I'm kind of at, like, again, a big part of what I value is accountability. Like, you need to own up to something. And I hate using the term canceled because canceled seems like everyone is overreacting and like, you know, I sexually assaulted someone, now I'm canceled. These people are, well, there are repercussions for your behaviors.
Yeah.
But I was just like, well, what can I do? And it doesn't seem like anybody wants to like, oh, it's just like one strike, you're out. I'm like,
But in a way, it's not true. There's another guy in our community who I've been friends with for many years now, and he got himself in his own situation of hot water to the point where everything went to court, you know, courts and legal things and all this stuff that was happening.
yeah,
And you talk about canceled. I mean, this is a guy who had to call me. He called me a couple weeks ago and just being like, dude, did I just like lose everything? I can't even get a gig now at all. And I've been gigging down here for a long time, and everybody knows who he is. And he's real similar to you, where, you know, Logan and I are, and a handful of us are still really good friends with him, but the other part of the community is not, and are doing everything they can to kind of keep him from working. And because it is such a small community, really, at the end of the day, there's really not a lot of people down there. It's maybe just only a couple of, 200-300 people.
Yeah, word travels fast, and then
Right.
There's a saying that a lie travels around the world 3 times before the truth even gets its pants on. And I guess the one thing I've noticed, and I noticed it before me, is that a lot of people down there seem really eager to pile on others.
Yes.
And I've probably been guilty of that too, because that was probably based on my own insecurity. But like, I've really spent a lot of time in the past 2 years reassessing who I am and like, okay, like how to be to other people.
A lot of the piling on and that kind of stuff, though, to me, is out of their own insecurities of their own. There are definitely some people that I mentioned without names that I knew exactly who we were talking about instantly without even having to ask you who you're talking about. And those people most of them are folks that I've known also for a long time, and I get along with them just fine. And I try really, to not make enemies because of any kind. Because our reputation ultimately, unfortunately and fortunately, depending on how you look at it, is all we have in a lot of ways. And so good or bad, I'll work with just damn near everybody. There's only maybe 3 names of people that I can think of that as soon as that name comes up, or absolutely not.
Yeah.
And those are usually mostly for personal reasons. Because I have found out that they abuse women. It's more like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Than what you, like in a situation like what you've done. Where like I would not refuse a gig because of that. Because honestly, especially if I didn't know you already, I want to know who this guy is, because I keep seeing all this stuff online about him, whatever. Let me just see what it's like. Let's do it. I'm gonna do this gig and draw my own conclusion. Again, I'm not gonna base my opinion on this person because everybody else says he's an asshole or he did this or that or the other. I want to find out for myself. And 9 times out of 10, I find out they're pretty good people. They just made a mistake. They messed up. They did something thoughtless that they thought was with good intention.
Yeah.
But it just went about it the wrong way.
Yeah, and it's funny how like some people do something that we would classify as careless, like showing up to a gig and not knowing the tunes or thinking that you're cool on Broadway, and those people get dragged through the mud the same way somebody who does something that is socially on a different level, like abusive towards women, violence. I don't want to like go down a laundry list, but it seems like there's an air down there, and one of the things I've thought about is that a lot of Broadway is such hard work, and people don't realize that it's a real job. It's fun, but it's a real job, and there's days you don't want to do it. And some of us there are underpaid and we're taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And I also notice this when I see people on these pages pile on a tourist. Let's say a tourist tips somebody like $20 and then later they take it back or they dispute it. Totally bad form. I don't agree with that at all. I also don't agree with people like doxing that person online. Because was that person out of line? Yeah, but it makes all of us look bad like when you do that. I totally can understand like defending all of us, because that is how we make our living.
Yeah.
We're all down there scrapping for our lives, and a lot of times we're just like turning against each other when it's like, you know what, there's like people up the chain that are kind of taking advantage of this whole scene and all of us instead of not fighting with each other.
Right.
But they would say, well, musicians will never organize, and that's not something I want to get into.
Oh, that's been a conversation that's gone round and round as long as I've lived here, and the closest that they got was when everybody protested the 10% raise at and I was with one of those people at the time. I have a recording of one of the people high up in the world talking about wanting to slit his throat, and just saying some really awful things to him. Man, I admired him so much. He was one of the only guys in that world, in that circuit, that stood up for everybody else. And it worked. Yeah. And between him and a whole bunch of other players, because I remember I was out of town, I was on tour when all this stuff was happening, and I'm watching it from afar, and I'm keeping tabs, and I'm talking to this guy every day and just being like, what's going on today? And I'm talking to other people who are going into trying to go to court over this stuff, and like really, like, and other people going to press. And that's where things changed.
Yeah.
When they started to go to press, that's when everything stopped, and or started to change.
Yeah.
I think they realized, okay, this went too far. This was pretty an admirable scenario from the musician standpoint. What trying to do, or the idea behind what they were trying to do, wasn't actually bad. They have what they're doing with the. There's no other outlet on Broadway where somebody new from, Alabama or wherever they come from to come into town and instantly start working.
Yeah.
Be able to work right away because of the audition process. I think that's brilliant. I think it's a great idea. It's a really cool way to give people an opportunity that otherwise would not have it. But the way that they were trying to implement that fee to help pay for that was wrong. And I think both the musicians standing up to it made them understand, like, okay, this isn't the right way to do it. But again, I applaud everybody that stood their ground in that situation as a musician. And I played in that circuit, And so, I mean, I could very well be shooting myself in the foot by talking about it, but I don't mind because I see both sides of it.
Yeah.
And I see the benefits to both sides of it.
Playing in Broadway, being in that scene is like you are in the eye of a tornado. Everything is swirling around you, and you are just trying to, like, I gotta run to my gig, I gotta run back, I got parking. And it's like, oh, I would love to talk, man, but I have 15 minutes to get to my next gig.
Yep.
And we miss so many things, and like we don't have time to like really decompress, and we have all that anxiety from, like, it's a pressure cooker.
Yes.
But then also, like, with the money, sometimes like money gets tight at times, and you're like, I'm working my ass off. I literally played 80 hours this week, and I'm still short on cash. But yeah, we have this anxiety, and sometimes there's just not a place for it to go for people when they want to take it out on who's ever the gossip or, like, the scandal du jour. And
that's where that insecurity stuff comes from. Because all these people on their own personal pages are frequently posting their own drama, which is usually wrapped in a blanket of insecurity, and we all have it. I actually was in a conversation with somebody about how they were having a conversation about me, and they're like, how is this guy who's fucking 50 years old that has the world, basically, he's got great kids and he can play everything and he's got, all these famous people, whatever, and he's yet so insecure. I'm like, well, sorry, that's me. That's a product of my own upbringing and my own experiences growing up. And I'm working really hard to overcome some of those things. And some of them I did. Like, this year's been a very big year of kind of getting over and understanding where some of those things came from and how can I adapt my behavior to where I don't continue to
shoot yourself in the foot,
do that, or the people,
yourself.
like the people pleasing thing. I didn't realize that was a bad thing. I thought I was doing something good, but that all comes a lot from, you're the result of that is, okay, you've done a lot of things for a lot of people and made a lot of people happy, but you're not making genuine connections with them. You're not making true, solid friendships with them or things that are going to last. You're just basically kissing everybody's ass to make sure that they're on your side. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I got to reassess this a little bit and figure out how I can find balance there. So that is the key word to so many things in my life, is balance. That things, I'm realizing how many things were out of balance and how many things I can what I can change to bring that scale to where it is now.
Yeah.
I want to always be the best person I can be for everybody, for my partner, for my family, for my kids, for my friends, for the other musicians that I'm playing with. When I go into a gig on Broadway or any gig at all, which hat am I wearing? Am I the band leader? Okay, cool, I got it. Am I just a side guy over here? Okay, I got that too. So I won't ask any questions. I won't throw any input or suggestions or anything.
Oh, I don't want to play that song.
This is your band.
Yeah.
If you tell me I got to play Wagon Wheel for the next 4 hours, like over and over.
I mean, you're paying, cool. Yeah.
Cool, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
If it's my band, go fuck yourself. I'm not doing that. No. If that's what you want to do, then go play somewhere else. But this is your band, so I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do.
Yeah.
And now I learned a hard lesson on that this fall with one of the bands I was in, and me and the band leader were just kept butting heads, man. And I was like, what the hell's going on with this? Why is this happening? And I was realizing that I was overstepping. I was inserting myself into a situation. I was asking for things that didn't belong to me yet.
Okay.
You know, because I was still new in this band. I'm the new guy in a band, and the problem is when I get into something and I get excited about it, I go all out. Here's all of me. Here's all my celebrity friends. Here's all my, I'm giving all of this stuff to you because I want you to like me and I want you to keep me around. But that was to my own detriment to a certain extent because they saw right through it. And I got called out on some of it. And boy, some of it pissed me off. But then once I had time to like sit down and understand why they were upset or why I wasn't ready to do those things, and I had to really look at it and go, okay, you're right. It wasn't time for me to do all that yet. I'm still a side guy. I'm a brand new guy.
Yeah.
My job right now is, what song's next? Okay, cool. I'll play it.
Yeah.
I'm not starting songs. I'm not calling songs. I'm not suggesting songs. I'm not supposed to do any of that yet because I've only been in this band for a month or 2 months or whatever it is, it was. And that was humbling, man, because it went from, I'm in a band with a bunch of these are my friends, these are all my friends. Oh, wait, these aren't my friends. These are that's my boss. He works for my boss. Okay. Oh, okay, I'm a side guy. And I need to just shut up and play songs and get paid and go home. Okay, I can do that. Sorry, I thought I was a band member. When I think I'm a band member, I work as a band member, and I'm all-inclusive, and I feel like I'm an equal part of everything, and I do all that. Turns out I was not quite there yet. I hadn't gotten that far.
It's like there needs to be HR training for musicians because that's something I wish I would have had. Like, honestly, because managing relationships and knowing like what the roles are, like you're basically describing you're walking in as an employee and you're acting as a manager. Not because you had a big head, but because you're like, yeah, this is awesome, let's do it.
Right.
And they're like, whoa, here, you know.
But it was a lesson I needed to learn. I guarantee you moving forward with any other band or any situation I'm in, I'm going to remember that and how I'm going to approach that from here on out. And I'll ask that question straight up next time and be like, okay, so I can provide all this stuff and I can help you with any of this stuff, but I'm only going to do it if you want me to. I'm not just going to start doing stuff just because I'm excited about it and apologize later, because that didn't end well for me. And I lost friends because of it.
But you're demonstrating this ability to reflect. And I find that reflecting when you're working nonstop can be really hard because you're just always like in this, I gotta go, I gotta learn this, I gotta do this. And sometimes when you're reacting, you're not reacting to that moment, you're reacting to a bunch of stuff that you never really processed. I didn't learn it till later in life, and I'm still learning it right now. And that's also one of the reasons why I just didn't say anything, because I just wanted to reflect and sit back and think and soak things in.
So now that you've done that, what have you, because I was thinking on the way here, I was like, I do want to hear your side. I want, you said something about I wasn't quite ready to set my side, but I do want to hear that and know what that is, because I have a general idea. And then also, how have you decided, now that I haven't spoken with you for a few weeks about this and you've had the time to reflect and think, what have you decided to do to move forward? And do you still have any interest in trying to somehow kind of make amends with these people, or is it just kind of like, well, life moves on and I'm just gonna kind of do my thing and if it happens, it happens? I mean, there's really only about 3 or 4 ways that it could go down.
Yeah, based on what I've seen and done, I don't think going on certain Facebook groups and posting something there, I think that's like going into somebody's home and trying to, and I don't think that would do anybody like myself or the community a service. And I'll probably release this video and I'll probably tag it and be like, here's some things I learned. Because when I was talking to you initially, I was thinking, well, this has happened before and it's gonna happen again. How can I use this to help other people? And then going forward, if there's the people who need amends, I would love to talk to them. I would love to say, hey, I'm sorry, what can I do? And you know, I've tried reaching out and there's been nothing. But I would say like, yeah, if you feel like you've been wronged, if there's something I missed, please come to me because I am all ears. Like I am all ears and I will listen and take in seriously. And I want to like what I wanted to do was try to, okay, how can I use this to help other people? And then is somebody genuinely hurt by this? And if so, I want to make that right somehow.
Okay.
I've always stood by that. And it's just kind of hard when you don't have a platform. So that's why I'm like, well, I'll just use my YouTube channel because
I think you'd be surprised too by how many people do check that stuff out and just don't tell you about it or say something. Especially now or when they view you as a bad guy or whatever you want to call it.
yeah.
That people are a little more like snoopy and nosy and be like, okay,
Yeah, they
what's
want
this
that.
guy
That's
about?
what's going on in this like soap opera. Let me check it out.
So I mean, some of those people very well may hear it, and
Yeah.
then others, you know, most of them won't.
Yeah, there's some people who like no matter what I say or do, they're never going to.
Right.
And I don't want to criticize anybody because you know when it comes your time to like make amends and your time to clean up a mess, you need to. It's about you. It's not about well that person did that. Yeah, well maybe that everyone makes mistakes, but we're talking about my mistakes. I will own up to it. You know, I'm not going to deflect anything. Like the people who are really like upset and hurt, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, and I want to hear them out, and I really want to.
In that group, a lot of times, like you said, it becomes a bit of a joke. So in this case, you know, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, somebody posted something about, I don't remember exactly what it was, but then right under it, somebody was like, well, I'll charge you $150 for it.
Yeah.
So, and that is recurring. That's
Yeah.
become this recurring joke
Okay.
in that particular page and community. And I see it and I know exactly what they're talking about,
Yeah.
obviously. I'm sitting here with you. And in some cases, these are my friends too
Yeah.
that are saying these things. And I just kind of want to go like, okay, but they're not, a lot of times they're not like friends that I see on a regular basis that I know extremely well, and not to a point where I would call and reach out and be like, yo, dude, check this out. Hold on a minute. You know, just slow your roll on that
Yeah.
because this is, in fact, I was talking to somebody about that I was coming over to talk to you today, and they're like, whoa, really? I'm like, what are you doing? I was like, check, well, you know, I've known Aaron since he was fairly, I don't know, a little while now, and he helped me out with something really early when he was here, and I remember that, you know, and that was very cool of you to reach out and bring me those books and do something that was not, I mean, it was a little above and beyond. It wasn't something that you even needed to do. Like, you know, I was trying to figure out the whole smoking, vaping thing, and you bring me these books about, like, from out of nowhere. You brought me 2 of them, too. You're like, here's one for you, and then if you just want to pass one on to somebody else, I'm like, that's fucking cool. And so little gestures like that. You know, Logan's another person. I was telling the same person, I was like, he's just like Logan. Like when I first moved to town and I needed to move this ridiculous in-bed couch that weighed like an elephant, he came over and helped me. I never knew the guy. I never met him before in my life.
Yeah.
And we've been friends ever since.
And that's the part of Nashville that I love, and I think that's about 95% of the musicians here.
Right.
Like, and that's what I've always wanted to help other musicians
But
out.
all of these people are judging you on this one mistake, but they don't know that other shit. Like, so that's why I had to explain to this person, like, dude, Aaron's fine. Like, just what you've seen is ridiculous. Like, he played the thong song at my show and did fucking great. Like, you were there. You dug it. It was one of the, you know, highlights of the show because it was such a weird song and it was different than everything else we were doing. And he charted that shit and played it. And I think you got it kind of last minute-ish too. And I was like, that proved to me that he's willing to put in the work, you know, and do the stuff right. I've seen you, you know, once in a while you'll go live when you're playing downtown, and I'll watch for a little bit, and just so I know that you know you can play and all that. So I don't ever worry about that. It's really just like, so.
It's
my point is, it's just I can't. It goes back to the same thing. I can't judge you for. I didn't, I didn't barely know you.
Yeah. And it's also like I can't judge the people. Like there's people who have like left some really nasty comments. I've never heard of these people before in my life. They come onto my page. I'm like, okay. And I kind of almost want to do them a service by like deleting it. It's like you're just making yourself look bad.
Right.
But it's like also I don't want to judge them because like, you know what? I've done stuff like that too before and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to get this guy." And I was just really making myself look like a tool. And
Sure. We've all done. Everybody has.
And so like I don't judge the people. I'm just like, okay, like because we all make mistakes and like asking for grace from people, you also need to offer that to people as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't take it personally, or I don't get upset if somebody makes a joke about it or like tries to like say, because I'm like, okay, well, if you know me, we can talk about it. And I don't want to make enemies either because it does you no good.
Right.
And ultimately, I hope this does something for both the musicians in this community, but also like gives musicians like outside of Nashville like an insight on how things are done. Because again, when I was coming up, going to music school and like starting my career, I didn't know anything about like personal politics and how to comport yourself on a gig, and I'm still learning that now apparently. But it's always interesting, and I think this experience has been like a lot of growth for me.
Yeah.
And I just want to put this out there for people. Like if you mess up in the future, everyone messes up, and I really hope one day, a year or two from now, I can like somebody messes up big time. I say, hey, why don't you come over? Let's have a talk.
Right.
And just be like, hey, this is my experience. This is what I learned.
Right. And that's why I'm here. This is exactly how this conversation started.
Yeah.
I called you that day when that happened because I saw that there was a firestorm of things. I didn't quite know what it was going on yet, but I knew it was heavy and it was bad and it was a lot, and there was a lot of people involved, a lot of people that I know personally. And I was like, wow, geez, what did this guy do? That just like threw everybody I know into like, this guy needs to go fuck himself. Like, okay, I've been there. Not very often, thankfully, but I have been there. Let me reach out and see what's going on from your end. Because I knew you enough to know that, douchebag taking advantage of everybody doesn't seem like your MO. So, if there was a couple other people that did that, I'd be like, not surprising at all.
Yeah.
But with you, that was surprising. So that's why I reached out. And we had a really good talk about a lot of things that day, and I think it was smart of you to not engage, just to stay off of social media and let things cool down. The only bad thing at this point now is, while things have indeed cooled down, it's still something that nobody's forgotten.
Yeah.
And so that, unfortunately, at least for now, will be a stigma that you're going to wear for a while. And so it's like, I don't really know. The only things I was thinking of to do, possibly, and it may or may not help, I don't know, is for you to come out to things like, Grunge Night that's happening on Monday at Basement East, or Rare Hair, or any of these kinds of events where a lot of those people are going to be there. Mm-hmm. And hopefully play. But if you don't play, even, if there are any of those particular people that stand out to you that you're like, man, maybe I could talk to him.
Yeah.
Maybe this is my chance to have a conversation.
Yeah, and also like not try to like just be real, and that sometimes that can be really hard when the pressure is on you and you need to like act like you're doing damage control. And I don't want to go out there and seem like I am like brown nosing but I also want to go out there and be like, yeah, I'm a real person. If you want to talk, we can talk. I am happy to. And then also like people who have been here longer than me, who I respect, have told me these things and they've given me input. And when somebody gives me input who has a track record, that means a whole lot to me, as opposed to somebody like posting a funny meme on my page. I'm like, okay, that doesn't do anything. And I just realized right now, like after like that phone call saved me from a lot of trouble and pain and unnecessary drama. So I thank you for that sincerely. And the only like how I can thank you is I'm hoping one day, a year or two from now, I see that and I call up whoever it is. I'm like,
Yeah,
hey.
yeah, yeah. Perfect.
But yeah, it's yeah. I'm going to take all that into account, and so I'm going to wrap this up, Tyson. I thank you for doing this. Not necessarily as a service. I mean, for me, yes, but also like I think this provides insight to some people that like what happens when you do step in the doo doo.
Yeah, I mean, we've all done it, dude. I've done plenty of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing about like overstepping your bounds and like getting a little bit too assertive on a gig, and then there's another thing about like, okay, I'm going to punch somebody on a gig. You know, that's those are different things.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
But but I digress. And I really had no idea how that conversation was going to go. I had no plan. I wasn't nervous because Tyson has always been such a solid dude, and he's always been so level-headed. Just hearing so much of his words and what he had to say was really helpful, not just to me, but I think it's really helpful to a lot of other people. And he's one of the people that I aspire to be like. He really sits back and assesses things. He's kind, he's talented, he's immensely hardworking, and he seems to always be wanting to help other people out. You know, if I can just speak from the heart here, because I don't have a script. After Tyson and I talked for over 2 hours, I sat down and I thought, man, I'm just really grateful to have people like this around. I mean, he's a fantastic musician, but he's also a fantastic person. And he and I talked a lot about some of our struggles, some of the hard lessons we've learned. We even talked about family life. And it seems like Tyson and I have gone down these paths of we're getting a certain age where we need to start taking inventory of ourselves and start finding ways to improve ourselves so we can be a better friend, a better bandmate, a better father, a better son, better husband, better boyfriend, whatever. And from somebody who is so respected as Tyson, to hear him talk in such a human way to me really was comforting. I can't express enough how much I just appreciate Tyson. And I think I'm not the only. I know that I'm not the only one. And I know he's done so many things behind the scenes that nobody will ever know about, and he doesn't care about that. You know, and he also organizes these events in town called the Rare Hair Shows. And it's a great way to meet other musicians, it's a great networking event for other musicians to push their career along. But it's also a great way to benefit charities, and it's a great way to build community. He's a guy that is always giving everybody a chance, and he's always trying to do his best to make Nashville a better place. He's a good dude. You know, after that evening, I wanted to get on Facebook or I wanted to get online and post something like, hey guys, I just want to say Tyson's a great dude. Because I was genuinely just thankful to be around him. Really, he and I just sitting down and talking about life. He's giving me feedback and he's giving me some perspective that I never even heard before. And that's another thing I want to touch upon, that Tyson gave me a lot of great perspective and he gave me a lot of ways to think. And I'm going to still continue to think on that. And what I saw from Tyson was he knew me and he knew that that wasn't who I was. And I think part of him wanted to smooth things out, but part of him wanted to be like, hey, man, maybe don't do this. And he wasn't doing that with any animosity. He was doing that with kindness, compassion, and care for me and care for the community. I admire Tyson for speaking his mind because sometimes that can really get you in some hot water, not just in Nashville, not just in the music industry, but in life. But he has a track record that is pretty solid, really solid. And he knows that. And he's willing to put his name behind things when he knows that it's what's going on. And I'm probably rambling right now, but I just like to say that Tyson is one of the people that makes Nashville a great place. He's one of the people that makes the music scene a great place. So much of these videos is about how I love Nashville and love some of the musicians here. I would say 99% of the musicians and people here are world class, not just as musicians, but as people as well. And he made me really grateful and gave me a different perspective. And he may not know this, but he also encouraged me to smooth over some other rough spots in my life with some people that no one has been able to do in the past 20 years, I would say. So, Tyson, thanks a lot, man. And if you're a musician in Nashville, I would suggest getting to know Tyson. He's a great resource. both as a musician and person. Thank you so much for watching. My next video will feature Logan Hatcher, who's a great bassist and also just a funny dude, great guy, and just talking a lot about what life is like after you step in some doo-doo in Nashville. If you've ever stepped in doo-doo in Nashville, drop it in the comments. Hell, if you've ever stepped in doo-doo at your gig, your job, whatever, let's talk about it. Seriously, drop it in the comments. And what did you do to reclaim yourself? Did you make amends? Did you apologize? Did you double down? Let's hear the stories. And lastly, be kind to yourself. Be kind to your neighbor. What do you have to lose from being kind? I'll see you on Sunday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time when I'm airing the Logan Hatcher.